Guys, welcome to Honest Hour with your host, Habiba Salim. Salam, guys. Welcome to our second episode of Honest Hour with your host, Habiba Salim. So, today I'm joined with a friend that's very, very close, very, very dear to me personally. She's a friend that I met in my university experience from first year. We really went strong up until our final year together, and yeah, so we both go to the same university, and that's how we met. And I'm just gonna, with no further ado, introduce this amazing guest, and we'll get into today's topic. So I'm joined today by the wonderful, the lovely Sabrine. Hello, Sabrine.
Hello, guys. How are you?
We're good. We're good. I feel like now, because we're pre-recording this, we're not going to get that live engagement with everyone, but I hope everyone is good and everyone's doing well. And today's topic, guys, is a very, very important and I think very versatile topic that can apply to many different relationships, experiences, and just life in general. And that is the topics of attachments. And this is very, very broad. You know, attachments can apply to so many different things, so many different relationships and different types of relationships. But specifically, what I kind of want to start with today is having Sabrine mention or to go into this beautiful analogy that me and her kind of brought up together whilst having a conversation a very, very random day. And it's this analogy of the apple on the tree. So, Sabs, you want to just take it away with that analogy, and then we'll kind of talk about it a bit more from there.
Okay, I want everyone to imagine you're climbing a tree and you keep climbing, you're trying to find this like perfect apple. So like it's be an opportunity, relationship, friendship. Like, it could apply to so much in life. So you're climbing the tree and you find an apple and it's a bit bruised, but it's okay. Like it is edible, but the longer you have the apple, the more it gets bruised and you realize it's just not good for you. And yeah, so the thing is you can either settle for the apple, or what you should do is continue climbing up that tree, leave the apple because you know it's not good for you, and you can see if there is a better apple for you up there somewhere. So you climb and you climb, and along the way you learn more about yourself, you have more experiences, and all whilst you're trying to find the best apple and the right apple for you. And you start to think like you'll never find another apple, so you start thinking back to the bruised one in the beginning, and you wonder whether you should go back to it. But to do that, you'd have to undo all the progress you've made. You've climbed up so many branches. And to get back to the apple, you just have to climb all the way down. And you don't really want to do that. So you're in a bit of a predicament. And you never know, before you climb back down to that apple, you could have been just 2 branches away from your perfect apple. So never go back. Either the bruised apple heals completely and catches up to you in your place in the tree, or you find a brand new apple that you were looking for all along.
Oh, I just love that analogy. I feel like there's so much wisdom and so many sort of points to that analogy that is not just relatable to everybody, but everybody has experienced at some point in their life, right? And it's this idea, definitely, not only because like in my mind, it's 3 steps, isn't it? It's number 1, realizing that the apple is bruised and the apple is no longer good for you. I feel like that's phase 1. And then phase 2 is going and leaving that. And like you said, continuing to climb into the unknown. You don't know if there's a pear, banana, what is up there for you, but you go and you continue in the hopes or the pursuit and the belief that there is something better for you. And I think that's kind of like where you go into your phase 2 of you're just in this unknown, really weird gray space that hence where you mentioned in the analogy, you begin to almost look back and what seemed bruised at the time, you can't no longer see that. You're like, wait, was it actually bad? Was it actually bruised? Was that relationship really that bad? Or was that job I was in that I absolutely hated really that unbearable? And I think these are the type of the questions that go through your mind and you just very much are like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? You know, and I think everyone's experienced that in all shapes and forms, right? And then I think the beautiful part where it kind of always like the aha moment, that light bulb moment where you find that apple, right? That's perfectly crisp and juicy and everything. I know people are fasting, we're going to be fasting at this point. So I don't want to go too much into the analogy of the beautifulness and taste of the apple, but it's that light bulb when everything clicks and comes together and you're like, wow, I know, I'm so glad I kept on going and I'm so glad I didn't go back. And I think, Sabs, like what you definitely always reminded me of, whenever I would kind of have these conversations with you, is not only is direction so important, but it's this idea that you wouldn't have gone or you wouldn't have left the apple had it been good in the first place.
Exactly, yeah. Like you just need to, what I do a lot of the time as well, when you're in that moment when you're realizing all these things about your bruised apple, like whatever it is in your life, write those things down, because more often than not, further down the line or like further up the tree, you'll have doubts and those regrets and like, oh, like was it that bad? So you can just go back to wherever you wrote the bad things about that thing and the bad things you were feeling about it, and it will just remind you, and it will just remind you to just be where you are in that tree and to not completely go back and just to analyze your situation a bit more, because those regrets can be so strong and those doubts that they will completely change all the progress you've made. So yeah, my advice is always to just write it down and just remember why you left that thing in the first place.
No, for sure. And I think not only just writing down, but just documenting that progress. I never found any. Sabrina's the type, I kid you not, that has like 20,000 photos in her camera roll, right? Of everything, every moment, and I'm crazy because I don't have that much. But I think like I have a lot anyway. But Sabrina is like, oh my gosh, like you literally have nothing of memory in your phone. And I've actually found the process of documenting, just filling in with yourself, really and truly just yourself. You don't need to show anybody. No one needs to see that progression or where you are in life, but just documenting that and putting a pinpoint. So then, as you're saying, when you're able to look back, you're like, whoa, oh, like, wow. And because our mind likes to kind of block out not only like trauma, but just negative things. Like if you hurt yourself, right, at one point in time, your mind will try and block out that pain, and then you think, oh, it wasn't that bad, like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, whatever. But I definitely think when you document that stuff and you write that down, you're able to really have that reflection and hindsight of like, oh my gosh, like I thought I wanted that at that time, but look what I've got now, you know, or look at the upgrade, or look at where my life is now. And I think just kind of moving on from that, the pandemic really, I think, did that for all of us, in the sense that it made us think, me personally, the idea that what I thought I had at the time, or the quality of my life before the pandemic, in so many like elements, I thought it was okay, I thought it was good. But then once it hit, and once I was forced to stop everything and really reflect and internalize so many things, you're like, whoa, like I did not think that this was wrong, or this needed improving. But it's like you have that moment in time where you're forced to stop and you're forced to just reflect, and then you're able to not only see what was wrong, but you're able to see where you've grown. And I think that's so important in everything we do in life, in how we feel, in our mental state, in how a person's made us feel, or a situation has made us feel, or an incident has made us feel. Because definitely when life is very high pace and boom, 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 everything's going so quick, we don't have that time to stop and rethink, how do I feel about this? Or is this the right thing? If sometimes you're staying because of convenience, you're staying because of it's here, so why not? Like, why? Maybe this is the best I'm ever going to get. And I think all of us fall into that trap of like, oh my gosh, like, let me just hold on to this friendship, or let me just hold on to this relationship, or whatever it may be, because this is the best I'm ever going to get. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's so important, in just to regularly just check in with yourself and see how you feel. Because so many times you could like spend a year in a job, or like a year in a relationship or a friendship or something, and you're just not feeling okay within yourself, but you're not reflecting on that, and you're not seeing what in your life is making you feel that way. So it's only when you just take a step back, like the pandemic made us do, and just like think about the aspects of your life, that's only when you realize oh, this thing needs to change, or like, again, like this apple is bruised, for example. So yeah, so I think just sitting back, reflecting, most important thing in the world. I've learned that biggest lesson from the pandemic.
Literally. And I think as well, like what you definitely, another thing I've learned a lot from you, Sabs, is the fact that when sometimes we're in times of high pressure, or high anxiety, or high worry, our mind and our decision making can be very, very blurred. And
Yeah.
and I remember, I don't like, you said something along the lines of, sometimes I need to differentiate between whether this is my thoughts or my anxiety's thoughts. And I found that so important and so deep, because I never thought of it that way. Usually as people, we think, this is just my thoughts, this is my thoughts, full stop. But and I had this conversation with my brother recently, is that we have very, very a multifaceted brain, in the sense that so many different things can be going on at the same time. And then when you are trying to find, I know we struggle with this so much, this authentic voice, what do I want? That voice, it can often be clouded by worry, fight or flight mode, adrenaline, anxiety, and that really clouds your decision making. And I think we've both firsthand experienced that, where we've been in that, we've made decisions in that state, and then we've kind of looked back and we're like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking, or what was I doing, or why did I make that decision? And so I kind of want to ask you, like, how, or what tips or tricks have you been able to do that can make you differentiate between whether your anxiety speaking in your worries, or is that stress inside of us that we all have, is it that voice, or is it how I'm actually feeling?
So basically what I do and how my kind of anxieties always work is, when I'm in that like heightened state of anxiety, I need to, again, writing things down. So when I'm in that state, I remind myself that I remind myself of the things that I was feeling when I wasn't anxious. So what I've started to do now is, when I am feeling good about something, when I am feeling less anxious, a lot more calm, I write the good things about that moment. So the complete opposite of what I said earlier about the bad things when you are ending something. So in this moment, write about the good things, like things that would reassure you when you are feeling a bit all over the place. And then when you are feeling like that, just to remember to look back on that note, or like note page, whatever you wrote it on, and it will reassure you. It will be like, okay, this is my state of anxiety, this is the thing that's affecting me right now. But my authentic self is when I'm more calm, more happy. And looking back at that will then remind you, like, okay, let me just wait until that anxiety like state is over, and then inshallah everything will be okay again. And just remind yourself that that moment is temporary, and that state of mind is temporary, because that's not your authentic self. So that is what I have been trying to implement a lot more, because it can get really crazy. And yeah, it's just,
you just like doubt yourself, you doubt it's literally fall into like an existential crisis. You're like,
literally, it's like you can't differentiate it in your brain. It's completely two sets of thoughts, and sometimes one set takes over, like negative, anxious set, or you being calm, like you're feeling happy about life, you're happy about your friendships, relationships, all of that. So it's literally just differentiating it, and learning what causes what ones to like take a step forward.
I think that is so important. Like I definitely need to start like implementing that for sure, because I think when you are in those moments, you think, oh, this is how I feel. Oh my God, this is my emotion, right? Or this is my standpoint. And then you come out of that, and then you're like, oh, actually, no, I just wasn't really happy that day. I was just very irritable that day. I was very annoyed-able that day. And therefore, like any other thing, any other precaution you will take, if you're not in the right head frame or state of mind, for example, driving, you're not allowed to drive when you're intoxicated, because you're not in the correct physical state to take on that decision making, to take on that responsibility. And I think actually, I'm like having a breakthrough right now, because it's the idea that genuinely, when you're in bad mental states, you're not in the correct conditions or in the correct...
You're not in control. You are not in that driver's seat. You're in the passenger seat.
Right. And then you should not be therefore taking decisions when you're in that state of mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
that
good
makes
analogy. You did good there.
that makes a lot of sense because, but then I think the question is, and I think why we take decisions in those states of mind is because you think, I'm never going to get out of this. This is like, okay, this is how I feel, like this is facts now. And then you're like, if this is facts, okay, I need to make a decision now then. Like, I need to do this.
Exactly.
So
it's just, you need to, it's basically act on your emotions and learning when to not act on your emotions. And it's just remind you there is no rush to make a decision. You can take your time. You can see how your emotions change over the next week or like even like the next few months. Like there is no rush in anything in life. And I think we're always ingrained in our heads like, oh my God, like I need to snappy decisions.
Right, like a
but,
week. In a week, I need to know if this person is my best friend, or in a week, I need to know if I want this job, or
there's no rush. And if someone else is involved, just maybe communicate that to them. Like, look, I need some time. But other than that, like there is no rush to make any decision. Yeah, so you just try not to act on your emotions because that is when things go wrong, and then regret comes along further down the line when you're like, why did I do that? So yeah.
No, for sure. And I think just kind of to move, because we began by saying this discussion is about, attachments and stuff, but I think so inadvertently and linked inherently is your mental health. And mental health is very, very important because I feel like if that's intact and that's okay, your relationships, your everything around you will be okay. And I think,
100%.
you can't do one without the other. And definitely just knowing your emotions, like you said, knowing which comes with knowing yourself, that will not only lead to better quality relationships, but in terms of literally all work friends, family relationships with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, with a significant other or husband or whoever. It will definitely improve that quality of relationships when you know yourself. Because I think sometimes what happens is that we use those to fill these voids, or we use these relationships to fill this feeling of worry, or this, it's like a numbing effect. You just want to forget about it. So you will just go and hang out with this person and then draw really close to this person. And then when you're not in that right headspace, you drift away. And then it's like you resent that person for trying to be there. It's this crazy cycle that happens when you're not in the right head frame and you're not in the right mental state. And I think just kind of to pose a question to you and to put you on the spot a bit, how do you feel like you are able to attain a healthy state of mind, if that even makes sense?
I think a lot goes into it. So there's so many aspects of like mental well-being and to look after yourself. So like if you don't look after yourself physically, but you look after yourself in so like many other ways, like emotionally, things like that, then it can have a negative effect. And it's like a whole cycle.
Holistic,
and so you need to make sure you look after your life in so many ways. And for me, a massive part is making sure I'm around other people and I have that social interaction. Because my worst moments, I guess, are when I feel really isolated and I isolate myself. So even if I don't feel like talking to someone that day, I will make sure I just send them a text like, hey, can we have a conversation? Or like, I'm going to send a tweet or something, like just have a little conversation, even if I don't feel like having a phone call. Just some sort of connection with someone else in the world. That helps so much, even if you're in mental state where you don't want to just speak to anyone, obviously that happens a lot, just to try and make sure that you are in some way feeling connected to the outside world, because your head can feel like your own little bubble a lot, and it's just bursting that bubble to make you realize that you aren't alone in any capacity, kind of thing.
No, that's very, very beautiful. And I think definitely the pandemic and isolation and all of this stuff has made every person, took a toll on everyone's mental state and our ability to interact as humans and all of that. So I think for sure that is so important to not necessarily have to have a 5-hour phone call with someone, but maintain that link that you still know you are loved and that you still love other people, which is amazing. And just sadly, to briefly interrupt this amazing conversation, we're just going to pause quickly for our ad breaks, and we shall be back with you guys very, very shortly.
This is Ramadan. Feed your soul while your body fasts. Do-dee-doo-dee-doo.
Waffles, crepes, cookie dough, ice cream, just what you need after a long day of fasting. Dessert Island is open until 1 a.m. during Ramadan, 7 days a week. And there is free parking at the rear. Come and see us at 116 to 118 Queensway, Bletchley. We can even deliver. Just visit desert-island.co.uk or download the app.
Where there is extreme poverty, there are always orphaned and abandoned children. Every 2.2 seconds, a child loses a parent somewhere in the world. There are over 200 million orphaned children worldwide. Muslim Global Relief provides education to help orphaned children develop the skills they need, making positive changes in their life and breaking them free from poverty. Awarded the UK's Best Muslim Charity of the Year. Make a 100% zakat donation. Visit muslimglobalrelief.org.
Come and visit us at Al Ansar and find fantastic deals on food and drink. At Al Ansar, we specialize in Asian groceries and HMC halal meat. We stock products from all over the world and have everything you need this Ramadan. From big packs of rice, flour and oil to dates, treats and snacks. You can find us at 153 Queens Way in Bletchley or call us on 01908 411 334.
Families Relief are working on a special Ramadan program that needs your help and support. Whether you would like to donate zakat, sadaqah, fidya or fitrana, your Ramadan donations will help us distribute food and clean water to impoverished families in needy countries like Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, Palestine and Africa. Help us to help them survive this Ramadan. Donate now on 0114 365 4454 or go online to familiesrelief.org.uk. Together we can save lives.
You might take a lot of wrong turns before you find the right path. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if no one is doing it. But if you take the wrong turn, come back quickly. Stay with me this blessed month through Light the Right Path with Happiness every Sunday from 1:30 to 2 p.m. May Allah accept all our good deeds. Inia Al-Qaderi.
Venture into the world of Islamic literature and writing with our new show, Ramadan Reading Retreat.
Aisha, Rumaisa and Sharza will bring to the airwaves all things bookish, from e-readers to the dog-eating debate.
Join us as we discuss topics such as our Ramadan reads, modern Muslim publishing, transformational books, and reading in the modern age.
Everyone is welcome to our retreat every Saturday at 3 p.m.
For a list of all our sponsors, please visit ramadanfm.com.
Ramadan, 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 87.9 FM.
Salam guys, welcome to Honest Hour with your host Habiba Salim.
Salam everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those ads. And basically to kind of shift the conversation from, just what we were speaking about previously with mental health and attachment and all these very deep, intricate topics that we could genuinely talk about for hours. We're going to shift it more to university and living out for university, which number one, I think is I don't want to say very uncommon for Muslims, but it's something that not many Muslim people that I know of have done, let alone female Muslims living out, which I therefore think our experience will be very, serving or useful. Insightful, yeah, in basically just kind of sharing our reflections about it. And maybe that can help anybody thinking about living out for university if things open up and everything becomes normal in the coming year, or if you have already lived out for university and you maybe have similar thoughts or you've experienced something similar. So me and Sabrine actually met because we lived at the same accommodation, and you know this story better than me, Sabs, but our pizza in the park, can you just throw us back to that time? You didn't even live there. That wasn't even but yeah, talk us through that, Sabs. So what happened that day?
So it was 23rd of September 2018.
It was years ago.
And so we got given a freshers leaflet of all these events and things. And the first one for people living out was Pizza in the Park at one of the accommodations. So I didn't know anyone yet. So I was like, I'm just going to go along and just see who's there. And both me and Habiba and a few of the other girls like wear hijab and stuff. And that's so like noticeably Muslim kind of thing. And you can kind of see roughly like what groups are like more approachable and things like that. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go over, speak to her
by herself, just on her own, literally single-handedly, just waltzing over.
Yes, I was like, hi, I'm Sabrine. Just gave him a brief introduction. Habiba was like the most welcoming person in the world. Like, honestly, when you meet her, it feels like you've known her forever. So, like, that's just how our friendship started. And the next day, I just called her. I was like, hey, like, what are you doing today? And she was like, oh, we're going to Oxford Street. And then I was like, okay, I'll come with you. And
no invite, just vibes. Literally, and that's what I genuinely loved about Sabrine in the first year. And this is kind of like how I think I would encourage anybody who is living out for their first year, especially if you're Muslim. Don't be afraid to approach other Muslims. And genuinely, like, I never had this going into uni of like, I need to just be friends with Muslims. Like, not at all. Up until that point, even Sabrine, we both had very minimal Muslim friends. And actually, we were friends with a lot of non-Muslims because that's just, you know, naturally in our environment, that's who was there. Like, there wasn't that many Muslims. And so I don't think either of us kind of had that idea of like, specifically like we have to be friends with just Muslims. Like I just was open and you know, wide-eyed first year, like so excited to just see the world. And then and I think what really drew me and Sabrine, and me personally, what I loved about her is the fact she was Egyptian. I was like, oh, you're Egyptian. Yeah, like she was like, yeah, I'm half. And I was like, that's enough for me. That's fine. I'm happy with that. But genuinely, when you meet other people, not only like from your same like country or your same region or whatever, that's part of home for me. Like that, we could bond over so many things that I'd never been able to with friends before. Like genuinely never in my life I don't think I've had like an Egyptian friend that's been like a best friend. And so that was kind of like our bonding moment. And then we were able to kind of grow that relationship. And like Sabrina, or I mentioned earlier, like Sabs didn't live in my accommodation from the get-go. So you lived in a different one, which is female only. Yeah. Right. And how was that then compared to when you moved to our accommodation?
So that one, I feel like every single accommodation has its own kind of vibe and different types of people. This one was a lot less kind of, but there was less like social spaces kind of thing. So I feel like an important thing when you're looking for what accommodation to stay in, I think try and choose one that there is some like social spaces, things like that, because that is where you meet people. And if you have friends living out, that will make it so much easier and so much easier to cope with. So that one was a lot less social kind of thing. I just went to uni, had all my fun then, and I came back just to speak. But then when I moved to Habiba's accommodation, like the fun was non-stop.
That was the fun was at like the accommodation. Like that's where the fun would begin most of the time. Yeah, that is very true. And I always used to forget that like Sabrine would have to like go back to her accommodation, which I think as well, especially when you are, you know, living out for the first time, that is scary, but also like having to walk home by yourself and all of that. Like we'd always be very, especially that area was not a nice area, like where your old accommodation was. So I think that's also worth taking to note, not to like scare you and be like, oh, you have to be friends with people as soon as you go into accommodations, but kind of making those relationships, making those friendships, especially because we all go to the same university, like we were able to walk home together and we were able to like, you know, always be together. And I think that was very important for our safety. And I think subconsciously, I didn't even notice how important that was.
Yeah, and even with me, my first accommodation, like I didn't really have any friends there. There were a few girls that we took each other's numbers just to be like, hey, let's walk home together, just so we didn't have to do it by ourselves, even though we weren't really friends. So that's an important thing to note as well. Even if your friends are other places, it is good to just have someone to walk home with, even if they're not your best friends, even if that's the only thing you do together. It's a very good thing just to do for your safety.
Yeah. And then I think kind of the second point where I didn't like, kind of looking back, which is very important, is putting down your preferences for your accommodation. So although mine was a mixed accommodation, so Sabrine's is just completely females, it was female only, I wrote in my preferences that I wanted a female only dorm. And your dorm is basically where your room is. So that's where you stay. Usually it depends on where you're going for university, but we were in London, so that it's very, very small, very, very crammed, and the space is not that big. But I think in our flat we had about 5, or was it 4 girls? I'm not sure, but it was between 4 and 5 that will be in your dorm, and then you have your own room. So I think definitely making sure, especially if you're like a hijabi, right, and you cover and you don't show your hair, that is so important. Like or both of my years, because I lived out first, and means we both first and second year, having the ability to just like walk around with your hair was a blessing. Whereas we know like other Muslim girls that were living in a mixed flat, and they struggled a lot harder with like being able to cover, and like it was just very uncomfortable. So I definitely say put your preferences down for female and even preferably Muslim, because that does make a difference. And I think my biggest fear going into accommodation and student accommodation was just this idea that like it was going to be party central, like drugs, drink everywhere. Like I was so scared of that. But I think like genuinely, it was from Allah. Like genuinely, the placement and the people that I got paired with was I couldn't have asked for anything better, genuinely. Because, and I'm saying this, Sabrine smiling, we got paired together in our second year. So second year, it was literally our entire friendship group in one dorm, which I don't understand how that happened. Yeah, we put each other's names down, but out of like the thousands of people, like you wouldn't have thought that they would have like listened and put us all together. But that was beautiful. The fact that we were all able, it was literally like we had a house, like we were sharing a house in second year. And I think definitely just making dua that you get put in the right place. Don't let that scare you. And even if you're not put in the right place, definitely fight for your right, basically, to move and hold on to that identity that I am Muslim and this is my preference. And my parents definitely sort of instilled that in me of like, no, these are your like this is what you need. Make sure that you kind of get that. And luckily I got it in both first and second year. And so that's kind of just the technical, breakdown of how me and Sabrine met and our living situation. But I think more importantly, and where I kind of want to go with this conversation, is how that affected yourself with your deen, and how you feel like it affected your just your ability not only to practice your religion, but just realizations that you had, or misconceptions or expectations you had that were kind of debunked when you experienced living out.
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in the most least ethnically diverse place you can probably find in England. Me and my sister were the only Muslims in pretty much our whole school.
Wow.
So my idea of what Muslims were and what Islam is was so specific to our upbringing and so specific to how I learned the deen kind of thing, that when I got to uni, I didn't really have any expectations because I thought everyone was like me. Like I just never really met a group of Muslims who wasn't brought up the same as me. So when I got there, and everyone had a completely just a different way of seeing the religion and being brought up within their own little communities, that I was shell shocked, and I know Habiba was as well.
We
I
mean
remember sitting down with her, having a bit of a crisis. I'm like, is everything we learned wrong? Like, so that was kind of a massive, like, kind of
shock.
I guess like a brick in the face. Yeah, like it really
reality slap, literally reality slap.
And it was just a whole process of then learning to understand who we are, how the religion is in our eyes, and knowing it's okay that someone else has maybe a different opinion on a certain aspect or a different way of seeing things, because and just knowing that your way of growing up is valid and your opinion, your religious, like, spiritual journey is so valid as well, just because it doesn't match someone else's who's grown up in completely different settings to you. So yeah,
definitely. And I think part of the con, I would say, of living out with other Muslims is that the thought process and the thinking about the deen 24/7, not in like, there's definitely a beautiful way of remembering Allah and thinking about the deen. I'm talking more about critically, like, is this right, is this wrong, is this right, is this wrong? This is so mentally exhausting for you that we didn't get a chance to switch that off, because we'd come home and the debates would continue back at the flat. Do you know what I mean? And the debates would continue. And then the next day it will be a new debate about a different topic. And I think that was, now looking back, like both me and Sabine living at home in our final year, I think we haven't had any of that mental turmoil, existential crisis that we had in first and second year at all.
Yeah, I remember I had one conversation with someone else over like message, I guess, and start the first lockdown. And that was the final straw for me. I was like, okay, like, this is just making me like spiral kind of thing. And I was like, I need to be okay with myself. I'm okay with, I guess, like the perspective that I got taught, because alhamdulillah, I know it was a very good like way of being taught the deen. And I just needed to learn to trust that, and not to go to everyone else who had conflicting like ideas and things. But obviously debates and stuff was good, but as you said, like to a certain extent. So yeah, I think it's important to, again, take a step back and just know yourself, I guess.
For sure. And I think that's what it was. It was just kind of like because we didn't have that comfort of home living out, you seek your comfort and your knowledge essentially from those around you. So ultimately it was like the blind leading the blind. Like we didn't know like all we had was our upbringing and our experience. And that at the time, I don't think we validated it enough, because we thought that it's not correct if it's not backed by this and that. But they were, you know, I think what our beliefs and what we were taught by our parents were backed religiously, but we just didn't know the specific source or where from or where. We just we were conditioned into believing or going into that thinking that was right, like you said. But then when we had that realization of other beliefs, and then you're living with that sort of constant debate and discussion, whilst it is good because you're with fellow Muslims, right? And you're able to ask questions and ponder and query about things. It was very toxic, I think, at times, because we would then begin to doubt ourselves, and then we would all like, you know, it wasn't, I don't think it was very useful, the amount of debates, now looking back, because now today in like this normal life where I'm living my day-to-day life, we don't talk about that on a day-to-day basis, because you kind of live your life. And I truly believe that faith and your spirituality is in your everyday life, subconsciously and consciously. So just being a good human being and living your life and praying and doing your fard, you are doing amazingly anyway by doing those things. And you're practicing spirituality, of course, if you have the sincerity and all of these things, that we don't sometimes, it's not necessary to have to go into these really philosophical debates about everything, because there's so much and you can never cover everything. So it's very tiring and toilsome when you keep, you know, having to unlock different layers. And I think the best thing for me and you both was actually putting these debates and discussions aside and seeking knowledge from those who are knowledgeable, like literally seeking knowledge from specific sheikhs, like shuyukh that we like, specific talks we like, lectures online, and there's an abundance of that online and on YouTube. And me and Sabs will always, even in our group chats, we'll send each other's like really good lectures or something we've heard. And I think that was so much better for us and our knowledge seeking journey than just sitting around a table having a debate that literally like no one actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, kind of going in circles.
Yeah, but not to dismiss and I don't think it's to say that like discussions aren't important. Like I'm the biggest believer in discussions, and sometimes we have to talk about things and debunk social things that we've thought and believed to be true, but actually they're not. And we could talk about them and discuss and revoke different mindsets and all this stuff. But yeah, I think part of why we're kind of mentioning this is because when you do live out, I think don't be too frivolous with that discussion and debate, which is available 24/7 because you are living with Muslims 24/7. But find that balance of like humanness and like just being there and being best friends. Like, and I definitely think towards our second year, we really were able to strike that really good balance of just literally, and that's when it became so beautiful to live together, just literally knocking on each other's windows and our walls, just like, come over, or where are you going, or what are you wearing, can I borrow this? That was beautiful to experience that together and be able to watch movies and play games. And that's definitely something I always treasure forever. But yeah, I think definitely just that identity and that existential crisis thing is a very common theme in just many Muslims and young Muslims that begin to find their own feet, their own identity for themselves for the first time without our parents.
Yeah. And I think always, I feel like even when you don't live out, but this really like catalyzed it for us. Even if you got brought up Muslim, like in the best way, the best upbringing, like you always need to find Islam for yourself.
Yes.
And it wasn't until, I know for me, like it wasn't until I saw how other people practice it, then I then realized, oh, this is how I practice it. This is my kind of identity with it. This is my viewpoint. And yeah, I feel like that was, even though it was kind of tough sometimes, the whole like debates and things, but like they did really open my mind a lot. And yeah, I think it's just the whole realization process, because a lot of the time realizations can be, I guess, painful and confusing and things like that, but like you will come out the other side like more knowledgeable, more like understanding, knowing yourself better, like kind of person. So yeah, that was kind of my experience with that kind of side. But yeah, the fun. So the sad side and the fun as well was just through the roof. It was so nice.
We always reminisce. Just send each other off throwbacks.
Like your own little home away from home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think just living out is one of the best things anyone can do. Like just to learn more about yourself, because I really don't think the people who haven't lived out, you don't really experience that whole understanding of who you are unless you're completely separated from the things that made you who you are, if that makes sense.
That is very deep. That is very, very true. And I think, there's no, like now we're living at home. There's no need for me to be this individual person when I have my mom, like, alhamdulillah, to like cook and clean and do everything for me. But when you're living out, you are that person. You are your mom. You are your comfort zone. You are your biggest responsibility. And you have to be in touch with yourself in that sense, because if you don't do the laundry, you're just going to have dirty clothes. Like you're not going to eat if you don't cook that day. There's no safety net that you can fall on, which I think, is definitely, that's why I would say finding the right Muslim friends and finding your right group who make you feel at home and are that piece of extended home is so important for surviving, living out for uni.
Yeah. And also, I know some people who've just started uni and things, and they're always freaking out, like, oh, Sabrina, like, you've met your kind of best friends like straight away. And I think, alhamdulillah, we were so lucky that was literally like 12 months. But, like, even making sure, like, you speak to some people, you make some friends, even if they don't feel like your kind of people, you will meet more people through the first people you meet. So just speak to everyone and don't freak out if, like, you don't find your people straight away, because inshallah you will eventually. It will always happen. There's always someone out there who kind of gets you, who you're similar to, and you can like build friendships with. So yeah, again, like take your time and just don't freak out, and things inshallah will work out in terms of friendships that you need.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And we could, again, all these discussions, I feel like we could go on for hours and hours, but unfortunately, we do have to end there for today's session. Thank you so much, Sabrine, for joining me and sharing your beautiful wisdom, like always. And yeah, we hope that you guys enjoyed this second episode. I don't know where it will be airing, but yeah, second or whichever episode this is. And inshallah, I will see you guys in the next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Al-Musawwir, the fashioner, meaning Allah brings into existence whatever He wills, in the manner He wills. He shapes and fashions His creatures in different forms and shapes in His infinite wisdom. Occurrence once in the Quran. Evidence, He is Allah, the Creator, the Originator, the Fashioner. That's in Surah Al-Hashr, chapter 59, verse 24.
It is narrated by Aisha radiyallahu anha that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed in the mosque one night. He prayed a prayer with some people, and the people increased. Then they gathered on the third night or on the fourth, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not come out to them. When morning came, he said, "I saw what you did, and the only thing which prevented me from coming out to you is that I fear that this Tarawih would become an